25 years after the European Good Friday Agreement, cold peace reigns in Northern Ireland. A quarter of a century after the Good Friday Agreement, Falls Road in Belfast remains a mostly Catholic community, more akin to Ireland than to England. Belfast, peace walls, they call them. Separation barriers are covered with thorns. By now, they had to come down 25 years after the Good Friday Agreement ended the horrors of 3 decades of sectarian violence in Northern Ireland. But they still stand as a symbol, shame and necessity. On Lanark Road, barrier separates the mostly Catholic Falls Road from mostly Protestant Shankill Road. A faded mural reads, "The more we sweat in peace, the less we bleed in war." It's both a popular tourist destination and the scene of what locals call a recreational riot. Rusty doors open every morning and close with a clatter at 10:30 p.m. every night, effectively limiting free movement in a modern European capital. In communities on both sides, people say Belfast is a much better place than it was during Troubles, when Northern Ireland was the scene of oil rings, targeted killings and mass riots that left 3,600, 47,000 injured and many. They live more with the heavy burden of their memories. But they are also skeptical of celebratory mood, as President Biden, former President Bill Clinton and other intellectuals arrived in Belfast this week to celebrate the enormous progress brought by US-mediated Good Friday Agreement. Now there is peace. But it's a cold peace. Alan McBride lost his wife and father-in-law in the October 1993 ING of Frizzell's fish shop on Shankill Road. Today she is co-coordinator of a trauma center that helps heal old and new wounds. Noting that the center was visited by dignitaries from all over the world to learn how Northern Ireland is making peace, McBride said that he and his peacekeepers should be investigated for what we are selling. While attending a panel discussion on the legacy of the agreement last week, he said there was too little courtesy, too little sense of neighborliness in Northern Ireland. This society is abnormal, he said in a later interview. Become the person you want. Marry the person you want. Not yet. To be sure, some flashpoints are gone. As a result of 1998 agreement, British Army was decommissioned, Royal Ulster Constabulary was renamed and Irish Republican Army laid down its arms. But the opposition stalemate small gangs of Republicans still pose problems. And formerly loyal paramilitary organizations have often turned into drug trades, usurping the communities they claim to protect. Britain's MI5 security service raised the terrorist threat level in Northern Ireland from significant to serious last month, meaning an attack is likely during Biden's visit. Despite the power-sharing provision in the Good Friday Agreement, there is functioning government in Northern Ireland today, no executive, parliament. The most recent shutdown was triggered by the Democratic Unionist Party, which has objected to Brexit trade deals negotiated by UK Prime Ministers. Many say it was also shaken after the DUP lost its status as the largest party in Northern Ireland. While the supremacy of religion as a marker of identity has disappeared here, deep divisions remain, personal, political, between Catholics Protestants, nationalists and trade unionists, between those who one day want a united Ireland, those who want to stay British forever, alongside the growing number of people who don't really care about orange versus green, but just want to live better lives. When moving from mixed neighborhoods to neighborhoods defined as single identity communities, residents are cautious, mindful of their language and dress. Wrong jersey for the wrong sports team can lead to insults and turn into a street fight. How you pronounce the letter H can be problematic. The older generation feels all this most acutely. But young adults say they carry the legacy as well. Schools here, still segregated by religion, mostly do not teach on issues or the Good Friday Agreement. The topics are considered very controversial. However, students learn from their parents and the internet. They also carry a map in their heads that shows which streets they will use and which bars they will never enter, even today. Shankill and Falls are parallel streets where many people live parallel lives within a mile of each other. Bridie McCabe, 66, was taking a class on social change at the Falls Women's Centre last week. McCabe, a former health worker, said she spent decades in prison for her role in the Irish Republican Army. "The fear is still inside me," she said. "It's not us anymore, but there is still this fear, bigotry and sectarianism," she said. "We've all been traumatized," she said. Her classmate Katrina Hamill, 50, an unemployed barber, said that children who grew up after the Good Friday Agreement didn't know how fragile that peace was. "Everything can come back," Hamill said. They say that although McCabe and Hamill have friends on the other side of the segregation barrier, they won't linger and go shopping there. The scene at the Shankill Women's Centre last week was similar, women attending classes and babies in daycare. Betty Carlisle, 66, is a manager there. She remembers mother giving her a crucifix to wear on way to a Catholic district. "He took my combat training from me," she said. "I was determined to live a different life. It's much better now," Carlisle said. "But still, this is a peace process and we are still in the process." One sign of progress here, how peace is achieved, is the booming tourism industry. One of the most popular attractions in Belfast is an interactive exhibit about the Titanic. The sleds, on which the ship was built, host music concerts today. For a glimpse into more recent history, red double-decker tour buses rolled through streets that were once dangerous forbidden zones, pausing to allow tourists to take pictures of the ubiquitous murals. Some of paintings celebrate loyal paramilitary forces waving automatic rifles, while others celebrate the blessed face of Bobby Sands, who on hunger strike while imprisoned for his role in IRA. All the murals have been preserved, as well as homemade monuments to them, many of them decorated with new flower bouquets to celebrate Easter week. Traders complain that buses do not allow tourists to buy anything. Some residents say they feel like animals in the zoo as the buses pass. "This is a funny world," said Sharon, speaking on condition of anonymity, as he is a former loyalist paramilitary member who lives on Shankill Road and has spent time in prison. He was struck by the strangeness of strangers taking pictures of his former comrades holding AK-47s on the murals. He was smoking sweet marijuana. He said he needed it for his mental health. As he spoke, an alarm went off informing him that he had to go outside and put a few more pounds on the meter in the hallway to keep his electricity on. What is our peace? He assessed that Catholics were on the rise and Protestants in decline. Demography can determine Ireland's future. Tom Little, 21, works as a barista at a cafe on Shankill Road. He has tattoos on his arms. Not the Protestant loyalist paramilitary group to which his father and grandfather swore allegiance, but his favorite group, a Manchester-based group called 1975. Growing up, he was warned where not to go in Belfast. He now has a girlfriend from a Catholic family. Families are right about this. Little said he understood how terrible the Troubles were. He watched documentaries on YouTube. He remembers a riot not far away 2 years ago, when masked men hijacked a bus and set it fire, and young people on both sides threw stones at each other, infuriating them as the elders cheered them up. He was disgusted to see this. "It's not the 60s, 70s or 80s anymore," he said. He said he and his friends really had no idea about Northern Ireland Protocol or Windsor Framework, post-Brexit trade deals that have exhausted politicians here for past 4 years. What does she want? He wants to see the world.